There's a huge amount of misinformation around the Bondi Beach shooting. To clarify what actually happened, I've done my best to put together a minute-by-minute breakdown with a focus on the police response. In summary, police were present at the Hanukkah event itself, however were ambushed, and one or more of them were critically injured almost immediately after the shooting began. Other police responded and got there in about a minute, and after 6 minutes they'd killed one terrorist and incapacitated the other. The offenders were armed with shotguns and this straight pull rifle with what appears to be some kind of red dot sight. The .308 round on the left is what it was shooting, and the 9mm round on the right is what police were firing back with their pistols. Naveed was shooting accurately to about 100 metres, while effective range of the pistols used by police, which do not have any kind of optical sights, was about 10 to 25 metres. We'll now move on to a minute-by-minute breakdown of the incident. 6:41 p.m, Sunday, 14th of December, 2025, Bondi Beach. Dozens of people were present within a fenced-off area at Archer Park, celebrating Hanukkah. 2 police were patrolling outside the fenced area, while 2 more were patrolling inside. So as far as I'm aware, there were 4 police in total. 50-year-old Sajid and 24-year-old Naveed parked their vehicle near a footbridge overlooking Archer Park. They exit the vehicle with their guns, and Naveed heads to the bridge. Sajid drapes an ISIS flag over the windscreen, and all this has drawn the attention of Boris and Sophia Gurman, who disarm Sajid before he picks up another gun and kills them both. 6:42 p.m. Naveed shoots a rifle into the crowd at the Hanukkah event. The 2 police outside the fence are about 50 metres away from the shooter, while the 2 within the fence line are about 72 metres away from the shooter. The 2 police within the fenced-off area started retreating away from the shooters, lifting civilians to their feet and moving them to cover and providing first aid. This is possibly what they continued doing for the next several minutes until the incident was over. I'm not aware of any information that they pushed forward to the offenders and tried to engage them. At the same time, the closer 2 police are shot at and dive for cover, then start trying to get civilians to cover, and one of these police at some point gets shot in the chest and head, losing an eye. One of them runs towards the shooters. While crossing open ground, he takes heavy fire and falls to one knee before he moves back to cover. This constable shot in the shoulder with a bullet from that rifle, which basically would have exploded the shoulder, and he was trying to get up and kept collapsing, trying to shoot back. He was later put into a medically induced coma and didn't wake up again until the 23rd of December. He remains in hospital today. Keep in mind we don't have footage from this side of the park. It's difficult to confirm the exact timeline of events and exactly when this officer shot back. It may have been at a later point, and we do have a source saying that there were some shots coming from the park at about the 4 or 5 minute mark. So the maximum possible time that it took for police to actually shoot back would be 4 minutes, and the minimum would be about 30 seconds to a minute. This 20-year-old rabbi took off his shirt and made what he described as a tourniquet for the shoulder, which isn't really a thing and would have done nothing to stop the bleeding at all, but points for trying. He then said to the officer, "Give me your gun, I'm from Texas, I can take him out." Of course, the officer refused to give his gun to a random stranger, and there are plenty of reasons he wouldn't do this. The rabbi was then shot in the gut and he collapsed as well. He was later put in a coma and had 30 shotgun pellets removed from his body. The 4 officers at the scene would have had radios and typically would have broadcast immediately what was happening, although there would be very limited information in the first few seconds about things like how many shooters there are, exactly where they are positioned, and so on. By the way, we still haven't got past the first minute after the shooting started. 6:43 p.m. A police vehicle drives past the bridge with lights and sirens activated, then turns around and starts driving back towards the bridge. There are 2 potential reasons the police vehicle didn't stop at the bridge here. First, it's been about 30 seconds to a minute since the shooting actually started. The police who were shot at in the park would likely have communicated their location as Archer Park, so that first vehicle might have driven toward the park itself and may not have known the shooters were on the bridge at all in that very moment. Secondly, stopping beside the bridge where we see the vehicle in the video would be a terrible position. They're sitting ducks from that point. Sajid then leaves the bridge and walks toward the fenced-off area, while Naveed remains on the bridge and provides covering fire from his elevated position for his father, who is pushing towards the crowd. This is a planned tactic that they've developed while casing the scene on previous days. Sajid throws improvised explosives containing gunpowder and ball bearings into the crowd, which fail to detonate. After turning around and driving back, the police vehicle gets to within about 70 metres of the bridge before Naveed shoots at least 4 bullets into it. The driver, a female police officer, bails out and takes cover while the vehicle rolls forward until it bumps into another car. 6:44 p.m. Sajid presses forward towards the crowd, shooting into groups of people, and gets about 20 metres from the fence. 6:45 p.m. Ahmed Al-Ahmed disarms him, then puts the firearm down and raises his hands, likely to avoid being mistaken for the offender by police. Ahmed's actions caused Sajid to retreat back towards the bridge, and this will help police isolate and contain the offenders, and from this point on they're focused on police instead of civilians. Another man throws a brick at Sajid and appears to retreat back to the tree with Ahmed, then picks up the shotgun and points it back towards the offenders. I don't know if he actually fired back at them, but he is killed by Naveed shortly after. Ahmed is also shot several times, but he survived with serious injuries. A second police vehicle arrives behind the first, and two police, one male, one female, exit the vehicle and start running toward Naveed while using parked cars as cover. The female officer who took cover after being shot at in the first vehicle joins the second two police officers and starts moving forward. She stops behind a black car and takes the first shot at about 70 metres away from Naveed. It's unlikely she'd be able to hit Naveed reliably from that distance with a pistol. However, it creates some covering fire for her colleagues who are moving forward and takes Naveed's attention away from the Hanukkah event. 6:46 p.m. It is now 4 minutes since the beginning of the attack. Naveed returns accurate fire which barely misses the head of the officer, and it's so close that it bursts her eardrum. And then she takes cover as a car window shatters next to her. Sajid returns to the bridge and picks up a shotgun. It seems like he has fired towards this female officer, and one of the shotgun pellets has gone through her light Kevlar vest and exited near her neck. 6:47 p.m. Police shoot from another unknown direction, possibly from the park area. A detective moves into position behind a tree more than 40 metres away from the bridge, fires 3 shots and kills Sajid. This detective was possibly doing paperwork at the local police station nearby, and he showed up with a shirt and tie, no armour, no protective vest. He engaged from at least 40 metres away, possibly more than 45. This is a very difficult shot even for an excellent marksman. He's having a shootout from behind a tree with a man who has a rifle and something like a red dot sight on it, and he won. 6:48 p.m. The two police from the second car have been pushing forward to get within a more effective range for their firearms. This female officer appears to be physically closer than anyone else, and she is now also shooting at Naveed. Naveed is struck and goes down. This is 6 minutes after the shooting began. It's not confirmed whose shots Naveed was struck by, but it was likely the detective. It may have been multiple police. About a minute later, the first person steps onto the bridge who was a civilian, not a police officer. Another civilian who was sheltering with the officer near the black car points out the new man on the bridge, which causes the officer to fire another shot that thankfully misses the civilian. He's also very lucky that the offenders didn't shoot him when he got to the bridge. People are often quite capable of shooting after they've been shot and fall into the ground. One of the police themselves was able to continue shooting after they were critically injured. So seeing the offenders fall does not mean that the threat is over. From that point on, several more civilians get on the bridge and do things like stomp on the head of the dead shooter, assault each other, and put their fingerprints and DNA all over the weapons, offenders, and crime scene. It becomes a crowd control matter as the cops try to deal with these people while rendering first aid and trying to do the rest of their job, like preserve the crime scene. These people weren't helping and only put themselves and others in danger and created confusion and distraction for the police. Following the incident, there has been a huge amount of misinformation about how the police responded. A lot of this might be attributed to one witness who was at the scene and said that police just hid themselves and never drew their guns and did nothing for 20 minutes.
20 minutes was 4 policemen there. Nobody gave fire back. Nothing, like they froze.
He may have been near a couple of the police who were first ambushed at a longer range. Under stress, a minute can seem like it was much longer, so I don't think he's actually lying about what he saw. But as we've just seen with the details that I've provided to you here, his version of events as a whole is completely inaccurate. Some have said that another female officer was having a panic attack. I don't know if she did or not, but the footage they're referring to happened a few minutes after it was all over, and it's hard to tell what is actually going on. This might be the female cop who was hit by a shotgun pellet and they were checking her for injuries after the incident. She's also been accused of surrendering to the shooters. So she's driven to the scene as the first cop to respond by herself, gets shot at in her car, bails out, returns fire, takes a shotgun pellet that goes through her vest and exits near her neck. A rifle round goes past her head so close that it bursts her eardrum. She keeps pushing up, she keeps returning fire, then later moves up to the bridge, helps manage crowds trying to move people away from the scene to safety. And it also turns out that she was at the Bondi mass stabbing incident over a year earlier where she gave CPR to a victim who died, which, by the way, was stopped by a lone female police officer who got on scene first and shot the offender. And apparently she's already back at work after the shooting. So the reality of what she did is really the polar opposite of how she was characterised on social media. I've put together all the clips that I found of this incident into a single video, and I can't share that on YouTube, but check the description for a link.